Now let's talk about types of sources. I'm going to distinguish between three general levels. Other writing classes might just distinguish popular or general sources from academic. That's not really an accurate distinction because, as we'll see, the really academic stuff you're not ready to use yet, most of you. So let's first talk about popular sources or general sources. These are often written for entertainment or infotainment purposes. Entertainment. The writers are generally not really experts on what they're writing about. So they may not be reliable or credible. It may be common information, it might be biased information, it might be inaccurate information, it might be unreliable information. Now, examples could include Wikipedia, which is usually reliable, but sometimes the information is, well, it's just like an encyclopedia. It's common information. Common information is not necessarily new. And then sometimes, occasionally, Wikipedia might still not quite be reliable. You never know. It could be vandalized. Somebody added to it last night, and the information is not quite right. You have to be careful with Wikipedia and other general reference sources. Also textbooks, typical college textbooks. It's common information. It's not necessarily unique information. It's just common knowledge. It's kind of like the sky is blue kind of thing. Yeah, we know the sky is blue. You don't need to cite that. Water is wet. Bricks are hard. Things like that. You don't need to cite. Popular books, they're written for entertainment purposes or to make money. Again, popular magazines for entertainment or to make money, not primarily to inform. Popular websites, blogs, things like that. Minor newspapers, a small town newspaper, newspaper that's not really well known nationally or internationally. They're just getting their information from a wire service like AP or Reuters. And if you compare like the news story about the same event in several different smaller newspapers, they will look pretty much the same. Even if you compare the Korea Times and the Korea Herald articles on the same event, they sound pretty similar. Why? They're getting their information from a wire service or from some other news media outlet, and they're just paraphrasing it. So it's better to go to better sources. On the other extreme, on the other end of the spectrum, are academic sources. It's original research, primary source by scholars, by scientists, by researchers, professors. It's by academic experts, scholars, scientists, professors, full-time researchers, PhD students, government scientists. It's written for other experts. It's written just for other experts, not the average person, not the public. So they're technical, they're difficult to understand. You have to have a good deal of knowledge about the topic or about the field to understand it. These consist of research articles published in academic research journals. Yeah, here's a psychology journal I subscribe to, psychology research. Yeah, I don't think you would be ready for this kind of stuff. The multiverse of methods, extending multiverse analysis to address data collection decisions. The neuroscience of ambivalent effect. Okay, I don't think you would be ready for this kind of stuff. Most likely you'd want to stay away from this stuff. Most of it's not going to be easy for you to understand. A few things might be certain domestically published research journals, business research journals might be, but otherwise don't do this. Definitely don't cite a PhD dissertation, because when you do that, you're claiming, oh, I read this dissertation. No, you did not read a 200-page PhD dissertation, a baksa nunmun. Don't cite that, please. Instead, kind of in the middle is a sweet spot, what I call professional sources. These are generally secondary sources. Occasionally, an author might publish academic research in a research journal. Then they might write another article that kind of summarizes it for like a science magazine. Okay, but generally it's going to be secondary information. Somebody else is summarizing that stuff for you. So it's by professional experts, maybe academic experts, but instead of writing like in a research journal for fellow researchers, they're writing in maybe a magazine or book that's intended for the general public, but a more educated audience. So they might be academic experts, scholars, scientists, professors, researchers, or it might be professional experts, kind of second-tier, second-level experts. These might be people in business, government, working in a professional field, journalists, journalists who are experts on the kind of area, the kind of stories that they regularly cover. This journalist writes for the New York Times. This is an expert on international affairs. This journalist is an expert on economic news, and so on. And so the better newspapers will have expert journalists. They're written for non-experts. Non-expert audience, but people who are educated, like you. By the way, an example of a scholar or an academic expert who might write something for a general audience, well, here's a book by Steven Pinker. He's a famous psychologist from Harvard. And of course, he publishes lots of research, original research, but then he will take time to write popular books as an expert on social science topics for an educated public. And this is one example. So types of sources consist of books, periodicals, maybe websites. Periodicals are things that are published periodically, like every day or every week. In other words, newspapers or magazines, either in print or in their websites, but they are fairly credible, well-known publications. And again, some books, like this example, it's written by an expert. He's an expert, but he's writing for non-experts, educated non-experts. So you might have these kinds of sources. So more specifically, professional sources will include your top newspapers, either domestically, the top newspapers in the country, or internationally, top newspapers and other news sources, news sites, printed or online news sources by international news media outlets that are well known. BBC, New York Times, Washington Post, Der Spiegel in Germany, for example, if you like that, things like that, as well as more specialized sources that are written by professional journalists. So business and business news magazines, they're written by business people and business journalists. Those are good sources. Those are great sources for anything business related. Science and science news sites and magazines, they're written by science journalists who know their stuff. They can read the technical scientific papers and then explain it to us so that we can understand. Another specialty magazines like IT technology magazines, electronics magazines, magazines for lawyers and such, which kind of gets into a related category, what we call professional or trade journals. Let me grab one for you here. I get a couple of these. These are sort of specialty magazines that are aimed at professionals in a particular profession. This one is published by the American Psychological Association, and it's written by experts, but it's for non-experts, non-researchers. But it's about what's going on in the world of psychology research. And this is written for people who might work in education or in counseling or in healthcare, universities who need to know this kind of stuff. I subscribe to a similar magazine, I don't know where I have it, that's for people in language education. So it's written by experts. It's not all like research heavy, but it's kind of explained to like typical educators about research in education or professional expert advice about education. You may or may not come across those kinds of things. In your case, you're probably going to be going for top newspapers, business magazines, science magazines, maybe specialty magazines. In the next installment, in the next video, I'm going to talk about the Chicago Manual of Style. We'll get into the mechanics of citing sources in your college papers, and particularly the college manual, which is appropriate for this course. Okay, so till then, see you later.